thank you all for coming today, this morning, to talk about organics and the dangers of pesticides in foods that you eat and enjoy, and some of them are beverages. So I am Jess Barron from Livestrong.com. I'm the general manager, and I have with me these three trailblazing panelists who in a moment are going to introduce themselves, but they're all working on incredibly important and forward-thinking areas for foods that we and beverages that we all enjoy: coffee, wine, and chocolate. So a moment about why Livestrong wanted to do this panel. We have data because we have a food tracker. So we have data about what people are really eating and how they're eating it and what they're doing. And so we looked at what the most popular foods were with people and then checked into what were the pesticide risks around those foods. So how many of you here have heard of the Dirty Dozen, the foods that you should always buy organic? Okay, great. That's good. You guys are well in the know about this. Who wants to guess what the number one food is that we found that people eat on, or track on their food tracker with Livestrong? Anyone want to guess what that is? Raise your hand. You'll win a prize, maybe another bag of great organic coffee, which, by the way, if you haven't gotten, come to us at the end and meet Jeff, and we'll give you some. Any guesses? Okay. Yes, thank you, which is great. I've done talks on coffee all around the nation in the past months, and it's funny, sometimes even at a convention called CoffeeCon, which is a really cool convention you should check out, people were not guessing coffee. They were like, oh, eggs or pasta, which eggs is in the top 5, but coffee is the number one thing that Americans are consuming, because 54% of Americans drink coffee, and then everyone that drinks it, they drink about 3 cups a day on average. So a lot of coffee is going into our bodies. But it's interesting, when you look at the Dirty Dozen, it's all about produce, so grapes and berries and things like that we need to buy organic. Coffee is the number 3 sprayed crop after cotton and tobacco when it comes to pesticides, and we do not eat cotton and tobacco. At least I don't. I hope you guys don't. So basically, it's something that's very important if you want to lessen your pesticide risk. I might buy organic grapes, but I'm not eating grapes probably more than once a month. However, I might be drinking a lot of wine, and Peter's going to talk about wine and what he does there. I drink wine several times a week, and before thinking about this and talking to people like Peter and Jeff, I wasn't always buying organic. And it is essential and something you can ask for. Sometimes people think it's confusing, but you look for the organic logo. So these guys are going to introduce themselves and tell a little bit about it. But before we do, how many people here in the room drink coffee? Raise your hand. Excellent, I do too. How many of you ask for organic or specify? You better. How many ask for organic coffee or only drink organic? Wow, so it's very few of us. Okay, and then how many here drink wine? How many of you ask for, look for, or drink organic wine? So that's good to see, because I used to think a few years ago I couldn't drink red wine anymore. I was like, red wine always gives me a headache. I can't drink it anymore. Start drinking organic, and Peter's wine, I don't get the headaches. I don't feel weird. So it's like it can be the pesticides that's in there, something to think about. And for you coffee drinkers, something to think about too when you get those weird jitters. Dave Asprey, who does Bulletproof Coffee, he says a lot of that's from the pesticides and chemicals in the coffee. So that's definitely something to think about. How many of you eat chocolate? Final one. And then how many look for organic chocolate? Yeah. Okay, wow, so a lot of good. So Sarah will talk more to that. So, all right, so glad you're all here. Glad you're all coffee drinkers, wine drinkers, and chocolate eaters. These guys are going to tell you a little bit about it. Jeff, why don't we start with you and introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Jeff Chean. I'm one of the founders of Groundworks Coffee in Los Angeles and now in Portland. We have a small chain, about 10 or 12, I guess 12 now, stores, and 2 roasteries, one in LA, one in Portland. I got into the coffee business about 24 years ago. And as the company grew and was able to become more and more of what I wanted it to be, which was a direct sourcing company, visiting origin, knowing the people that we're working with and buying from, seeing the conditions at the farms and being able to help to improve those, some sort of positive social force in coffee at origin, also in our local communities. That's what I've been spending more and more of my time on as we've gotten larger and more capable of doing that.
Great, thank you. How about you, Sarah?
Sarah Endline. I'm the chief writer of Sweetriot, and I grew up in a very small farming township in Michigan. 500 people, spent a lot of time in country ditches, in the fields, walking to my grandparents' farm and hanging out close to the land. And so when I had a dream of starting the world's greatest candy company, Sweetriot, which in my mind was to take the candy industry from its sugary artificial past to its natural organic future. That was my intention. I had no idea by entering the candy business that I would be going back to the farm. And for me, that was part of the opportunity when I started to realize as I looked at the Hershey bar that it was like, all sugar, 5% cacao. And as I started to look at the fundamental candy products, whether it was, looking at should I make a lollipop or a gummy bear, it was just all full of sugar. And as I got closer to focusing on chocolate, I realized how have we all forgotten that chocolate comes from a fruit, and chocolate's really an ag product, and it sounds crazy, but it took me back to the farm, and I realized here we have this incredible cacao fruit growing plus or minus 20 degrees of the equator, and the first step in making chocolate is picking that fruit. And that's really what brought me into the fair trade organic cacao Sweetriot world.
Peter, tell us about you.
Sure. So first of all, thank you so much for bringing me here to South by Southwest. This is just exciting. Thanks for joining us here, guys. This is really a special thing for me to be part of this. I'm used to going to conferences where everybody's all about wine. So this is really cool. So I speak a little bit funny. I'm from Denmark. I came over in the early 80s, bought the biggest motorcycle I could get and drove from the East Coast to West Coast and Canada to Mexico. In 2 months, I saw so much of this country called United States, I fell in love with it. Studied for a year on the East Coast, went back to Denmark, finished my education. I had this dream of coming back to the United States, did that. Corporate America, boring stuff, 10 years, 15 years, IT, management, nobody won't listen to that. But we did a startup company, we IPO'd, my wife and I and some of our friends. It gave us the opportunity to start realizing a dream. And many of you guys have been traveling wine country. And you drive up through the winding roads, and you see up on the hill the vineyards, a house up there, there's a swimming pool. The owners are sitting drinking white wine, and there's nothing to farming. It's an easy thing to do, right? So we bought a piece of land in 1999. Rebecca and I bought 82 acres in Santa Barbara County.